Welcome to my next episode of Behind the Style. In sunny Los Angeles, we are this week, the home of Erewhon, Alfred's Coffee, palm trees, In-N-Out Burger, and some of my favourite showrooms and vintage emporiums around the world. My next appointment, we're off to one of my favourite stores to go and look for some amazing vintage clothes for a big event for one of my clients coming up. We are off to Janet Mandel in Los Angeles, meeting the amazing Meg, who is the store manager of the Los Angeles store. To me, this is one of the best stores because the amount of insane, beautiful designers that are curated by the owner, Janet Mandel, is extraordinary. And for me, it just makes my job really exciting because basically it means that my clients can get something completely unique. I think one of the issues with dressing for red carpet is if you, as a VIP or celebrity, aren't exactly what the brand is looking for, you can't borrow clothes from them. So I think the VIP lists are getting smaller and smaller. Brands are very, very strict on who wears their clothes on carpets. So if someone's up and coming, or if they've got a specific look that they or I really want in mind for them, vintage or archive pieces is a really, really good direction to go in. Because it basically means that you can wear something from Galliano, Saint Laurent, Chanel, and it's an archive piece, it's vintage, it's sustainable. It's kind of like a cool thing to do because it also means that you're going to show up in something that's had quite a lot of thought and dedication and curation, which I think is quite nice. Some of my favourite archive pieces are from John Galliano. I just love the cut. I think no one does bust cut like John Galliano. And also, I love some of the old Cavalli archive pieces. They are just insane. And I'm always a bit of a sucker for animal print too. So I'm going to make some selects. Some of the pieces in this store in Los Angeles are absolutely incredible. I mean, runway pieces that have been found and brought here, you know, you will never ever see these pieces anywhere else. So yeah, I'm a sucker for something that's like completely unique. So yeah, anything that's like a little bit different. I mean, accessories too. You can't really go wrong with like an amazing vintage Gucci, or, you know, it's a treasure trove. It really is. Things that just keep going and going. So if you're a bit frightened of vintage clothes, just find some really good stores near you and just have a go. So I've made some selects for my client in London. I just love Tom Ford. I love the old Gucci pieces that he did. And there's quite a lot here today, which is really, really exciting. I love colour. I love anything that like shines on the red carpet when there's a, you know, when the flash photography comes out, you know, those pieces then look absolutely magical. And I like things that tell a story. I'm always really interested to know the background of a piece. Was it a runway piece? Who's worn it? Whose item was it? And yeah, even for like press days or something that isn't a carpet, it's just nice to look really different. And I think my clients always like the fact that I've put a bit of effort in and that they've found something that they're wearing that's completely unique. Dolce & Gabbana is also great for vintage. The shapes are like similar to what they are today. But if you love like lace and that lovely hourglass look, Dolce's a really good one. Tom Ford, Gucci, Galliano, Cavalli. I've made some really nice picks here. And I try and give a client some nice options of colour as well as something a bit more simple. But yeah, that's kind of how I work. I just kind of see things and they really catch my eye, and then I align them with a particular client. I mean, I just wish somebody would wear this vintage zebra look. And also, I'm obsessed by the Gucci. It's got like feathers on the sleeves. It's just insane. Then I start photographing the looks. I try and get as much detail as I can for my clients, because generally a lot of the time it's like a hard no or yes. It takes quite a lot of confidence to wear some vintage pieces, but like, you know, if you want like a real moment, there's more out back. There's even more in this vintage haven. So, I mean, there's no words to describe how good the dresses are in this store. Anyway, come with me. So much space in Los Angeles as well, I think. Okay, so there's even more goodies in the back of this. I think I'm going to say this, and I've been to most vintage stores around the world that are good. This is my favourite. I'm just going to put it out there. Come to Janet Mandel if you're in LA or New York or Chicago, because you know what? I have this issue sometimes, like even if I'm not styling for a client, if I'm going to a wedding or if I've got like a really big event, I know you can wear the same thing twice, but like sometimes it's just nice to get something new rather than spend the money on something that you can't really afford. Well, like this is where my mind goes. I go onto Net-a-Porter, I see something that I like, I don't love, and it's $3,000. Ridiculous. So if you come somewhere like this, you can get something that's like totally unique. It's got a story to it. Personally, like some of these pieces from like the 90s to early 2000s, they are very, very hard to beat, style-wise, quality-wise, cut, shape, you name it, all of it wise. So like, why not come somewhere like this? It's all online anyway. Just like doing a massive plug for you here. But like, it's all online anyway. And for me, I'd rather spend the money on renting something that I could never afford to buy. Like, that's kind of like where my brain goes. And I remember hearing Vivienne Westwood saying a few years ago, if you can't afford to buy the thing that you want, don't buy it. So like, if there's like an amazing Gucci coat that you want, but you can't afford to buy it, just don't buy it. Wait till you can buy it. Just don't buy like 5 things that like sort of are the coat, but they're never the coat. Does that make sense? So my thing has always been vintage. If I've ever had an event that I just want to like really stand out personally, I would always go vintage. And it's also, if you get like good brands like Tom Ford, Gucci, Galliano, they actually keep their value. So actually it's like an investment as well. So like, when there's been times in my life that I've needed the money, I've sold my Vivienne Westwood pieces, cried afterwards. But you know, it's not like something that's just like off the rack now. It's like a new car. It just like loses money as soon as you like wear it once. So anyway, come with me, because as you can see, there is so much choice here. And I think sometimes people think vintage is like one shape, but it's not. It's not like all 70s and like flower power and all that jazz. You can literally, this stores like this have got something for everyone. So anyway, let's have another look.
Literally made one.
When was that?
I will have to look that up.
Can I put you on video so I can show you some things?
Yes.
Thank you so much. See you soon. So just got off a flight from LA and now going hunted and gathered, and now going to the Savoy for the Olivier Awards fitting. So yeah, had a 2-hour turnaround and now we're off. Okay, so my next guest on my 3rd episode of Behind the Style is the very, very fabulous
vintage, I'm going to say vintage fairy almost, is Janet Mandel.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Behind the Style. Now, I first met you, I think, the day before the Oscars, and your store in LA was crazy busy, and you were sat there like the vintage couture queen that you are. So I'm so happy. We did some filming in your store 2 weeks ago, which was incredible. And I just really wanted to sit down and talk to you about your job, your journey, how you got there, all the clothes, all the exciting bits. So let's start. I'm going to ask you what I ask every single person when we kick off. The best part and the worst part of your job.
The best part of the job is that I get to work with my fabulous team that I adore throughout the 3 showrooms that we currently have. And working with people is the most exhilarating thing for me. I'm a people pleaser. So when people come in and they love what they're experiencing and they love what they see, but in the end, they love the entire service because it makes them feel so confident in the gorgeous clothes that they wear, and they come back thanking you. That's when I know my job and our job was well done. So
amazing.
It's the best,
that's a great
it's the
answer.
best part, is to make sure that people are happy and that we are fulfilling that happiness.
Well, I'm always very happy when I go into your stores because they are honestly like insane. So to tell people that don't know about you, you've got 3 stores, Janet. You've got New York, Los Angeles, and you've got Chicago, which is where you are today. So how did this incredible empire come about?
So when I started in 2018, it was an idea that my husband and I, who is my partner, sort of bounced off each other. We had some savings that we've been able to curate over the years. And he and I always wanted to start a business together and work together. I'm saying that's the best thing in the world. I highly wouldn't advise it. But at that time, the idea was, this is ours, right? Like, it's you and me. We created a family. Now we're going to create a business together. I know you love fashion. Is there anything we can do together to create a fashion company? And I'm thinking, I don't want to be a designer. I don't want to be in retail, which I am now, but it's a little bit different. I said, why don't, it's not a typical retail store, right? I think there's an idea, or we can capitalize on a rental. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, how many times do you see my friends coming in to my closet and borrowing things, whether it's a ski outfit or a dress or a bag? I said, I think there is some sort of a need that we can fulfill. And he said, oh, I think it's a great idea. So we went for it. 9 months, we were able to curate our first showroom, build a business model, and basically spend almost $3.5 million on clothes. I just shopped the entire 6 months. Yeah. Like, that's, it's not that I always loved shopping, but I was always good at finding things, whether it was on sale or it was one of a kind piece. I didn't even know I was curating vintage back then, because I've been a collector of amazing runway pieces, Chanel, Valentino, Saint Laurent, just because I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I wasn't doing the homework, whether, oh, is this vintage? Is this runway? Oh, it looks so beautiful. So over the years, before we started the business, I was curating and curating and curating. And then I noticed, wow, that's what I do best. I'm a curator. I have an eye, and I can source things with knowing that it's going to make money. I didn't know that when I was just buying clothes for myself. Yeah.
It really
is. That's
is.
how the business started.
Amazing. And so you've got the 3 stores. where do you spend most of your time, or do you just kind of like how do you manage the 3 stores? Because I know you're like a real personality in it. You know, you've got amazing staff, but obviously like a lot of people probably want to see you, right?
So in the beginning, when we only had one store, one showroom in Chicago, I was basically training the new stylist that was coming on board. So I would go in and I would help them, or I would facilitate all the customers that were coming in. It was because when we started, it was a very small team, right? So as the business grew, I brought in really great stylists in Chicago that just basically knocked it out of the water. They had the patience, they had the expertise, they knew the clothing, they loved people, and they loved doing what they were doing. So they took on probably the year after we started, only
Right.
because I had to step away and open LA. So it was really easy for me to train my staff and my team because they loved what they were doing. When you love something, you
Right.
love it, you're good at it. Whether you know it or not, you're passionate about it. And that's the most important thing. So my
And would you
clients, they just adapted.
yeah. And would you
They,
say that passion is like the secret of your success, because you're passionate and then the people around you that work with you are passionate? Do you think that's your secret, or like is there something else that you think's your kind of like secret sauce to this amazing vintage emporium, I guess you'd call it, world? Even like it's a vintage world, right?
correct. So I have to say I have a really great team that's all in it together. We're all in it together. They see how passionate I am. They see what I am curating, and they're learning off of what I'm doing, right? So for them, not only are they styling, my head stylist, not they don't only style, they also curate to help me buy what I need in order to fulfill my clients. For example, the girls in LA, they know exactly what they need because they've been dealing with their clients for 5 years. Chicago's the same, New York's the same. So it's a collaborative effort because they feed off of what I'm doing and how I'm running this business. And they really love what they're doing and they love it. And they said, one girl said, Janet, I haven't been at a job for more than 2 years. I worked at Marc Jacobs for probably 5. I worked at other boutiques. She's been with me since 2018. And she says, I don't think I'm ever going to leave you. It's the
Oh,
perfect for me. I love what I'm doing. It's the most amazing environment and culture.
yeah.
And you treat everybody not just like your employees, but you kind of treat them like your family and friends. That's the
That's
way
nice.
it should be. It's really important when I tell people when they're opening their business, team, culture, and just being kind and nice.
I know.
That goes
It's
a
so
long way
true.
to anybody.
It's so
It's
true.
true.
Especially, I think, in the fashion industry, because there's a lot of people out there that you and I know are not very kind and they're not very nice. So I think you're right. We have to lead by example, because I think a lot of people think that you've got to be mean when you're in charge, and you don't, funnily enough.
Listen, everybody has their own way, right? This is my
Yeah,
way. This is my way.
yeah.
And all my staff and my team members were all referred. I didn't hire one person from, a scouting agency or anything like that, or somebody that just sent me a resume. It's everybody's been referred. And to
That's
me,
in-
it works for us. It works for us
that's really
because then the
interesting.
longevity is there. The trust factor is there on
Absolutely.
both
There's the
levels.
trust for sure. So, a
Mhm.
question for you, Janet. This is going to be hard, I know. What is the best vintage piece you have ever found? Like your
Oh, wow.
number one?
There's so many,
I knew you were
but
going
I
to
will.
say that.
Yeah, there's so many because every vintage piece that I collect,
Right.
I
Has a
have
story. Yeah.
it has a story, but not only that, I have a special attachment, right? Like
Mm,
I knew when I bought it, I knew why I bought it, and I knew why I paid for the money to buy it.
mm-hmm.
So I would say most of my 90% of our vintage pieces all rent, and they rent for a very high dollar value.
Mm.
One that stuck out to me the most, and I will tell you, is this blue Cavalli, Roberto Cavalli. Oh my God, he's a legend. So sad to see him pass, but
I
he's
know.
left a legacy, right? He's left a huge legacy in the fashion industry. He can go from one extreme to another, right? Like he can do both. But there was an amazing blue chiffon silk gown that I purchased, and I saw it immediately. When I saw it online, it was actually, I bought a lot of stuff from this one vintage consigner online, and she would send me things and I would be like, oh, beautiful. Yes, that could work. Yes, it's gorgeous. When she sent me this, I didn't have to think twice. I was like, I want it. How much is it? And she said, it's da da da. And I was like, it's a huge investment. This is probably the most expense that I've spent on a dress. But with leap of faith, I knew that this would rent and people would die over it like I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. It's a beautiful piece. I probably spent thousands of dollars on it. Not even thousands, like 5 figures, I would say. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
But I'm
it
guessing
was a beautiful.
I'm guessing though as well, like when someone like Cavalli passes, the value of those pieces goes up even more, right? Because they become such, they're never going to be, he's never going to design again, so they become even more special, right?
Well, not only that, I think like Gianni and Gucci by Tom Ford and Cavalli, when they make a piece and it's one of a kind. You can't source it anywhere because I think he actually designed this for Victoria Beckham back in the day. It was a special piece just for her, which we were able to attain. I don't know how, but I get really lucky with with things that I find, especially vintage pieces. It was insane. It was just like we tried to look for it. A lot of clients wanted to buy it from me, and I would have to say no. And they would say, "Can you find me this?" And I can't. So we've been searching and searching. Come to find out, it was really the dress that she wore, and it was on the runway. It was, I think, in 1996 or 1998. But we have a lot of pieces like that. There was a dress that Elizabeth Hurley wore.
Oh, amazing.
That ended up in my hands, and it was made for her and her son. It's incredible. Her son said to her son actually found the dress worn by his friend, and he was like, where did you get that dress? And she's like, I rented it from Janet Mandel.
Hysterical.
What? That's my she's like, that's my mom's dress. And she's like, what do you mean? You don't understand. My mother actually gave this to a dry cleaners in London, and they never gave it back to her. So it was like a dress that was missing for 30 years.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden, he sees it on his friend. So he was like, oh my God, I have to talk to this Janet Mandel. Yeah, she got it from me. And it's, again, I think Gianni Versace made it for Elizabeth Hurley, and it was an atelier dress. So
that's mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing.
Isn't that a crazy story?
Well,
it's like the traveling.
It actually does make me realize I get quite paranoid about leaving my incredible clothes at times in dry cleaners, because I do worry that this stuff goes down. Do you know what I mean? Like, people aren't stupid when they see a nice label. So I think, my advice is always, like, don't leave things too long in a dry cleaner. Like, take them in and then, like, a few days later collect them, because I think that kind of stuff goes down when something's been there a while and they probably think, oh, well, they've forgotten about it or whatever. So I think that's good advice for people listening. Like, get those pieces back as soon as you can.
Correct.
Right.
Or so they can get robbed.
Right.
Too. You never
exactly.
Think about that.
Which you don't think about. Yeah, that's a good thing, actually. So we've spoken about Victoria Beckham and Liz Hurley. Who would be, that I'm sure you get celebrities through your doors every single day, who would be your dream person to walk through the door?
So I have been obsessed and this is old school, with Sex in the City. I always
Right.
admire her, tenacity to wear whatever she wanted on the show. I feel like she's that same person in real life. She can play with textures. She can wear anything. She's beautiful. She's little. Anything that she wears is so beautiful. I would love to style her, because I always felt when I was growing up watching Sex in the City that it was everybody's fashion icon show, right? Like, you watched the show because it was so fun and it was very girly. All the friends got together, but I watched it because I loved the fashion.
Totally.
It was incredible. And I think I was very inspired by her style. So I would love to.
That's interesting. I was too. I definitely was too. I think you cut out when you said the name. I think you said Sarah Jessica Parker, right? Is that who we're talking
Correct.
about?
Yes, Sarah Jessica Parker. Yes.
I think you cut out, but I knew who you were talking about. But I remember thinking, like, before I was a stylist, like, watching that show gave me confidence to be able to wear like something crazy from a vintage store with a pair of really high Jimmy Choo shoes, for example, that was a bit different. And I'm assuming that's how you were inspired as well. So I think it was a great show in that respect. I know people kind of give it some bad rep now, but I think for me it was definitely the same thing. Like, I was really inspired by that courage to just be like experimental and fun with clothes.
Correct. And I used to do that, and I used to wear clothes like that before I started the business. I would just wear things, and she inspired me, but to me it's a creative vision. Like, some people know how to put things together and some people don't.
Right.
It's not something that's taught, it's a creative vision.
It really is. So, Janet, who are your, I know this is really hard because people ask me this question all the time and it kind of changes depending on who I'm working with, but who are your top 3 go-to brands? Who are, like, if I say like you can have 3 brands only, who would they be?
Definitely Saint Laurent and Yves Saint Laurent. I think that Saint Laurent as a label, as a brand, have always been consistent with their creative direction, right? I think every creative director that's worked for Saint Laurent has always nailed it and killed it. They just know how to they use a lot of black, but they just do it so well. I'm obsessed with Saint Laurent. I think Tom Ford is another brand. I know they're very prominent with men's suiting, which they do very well, but they also have clean lines. It fits a lot of my clients. And I just love just the sleekness of Tom Ford. Now I'm going to go on the other top of the spectrum. I love Chanel. There's a special attachment with vintage Chanel. Not so much Chanel ready to wear now, because I think that right now the collection is, when I see their runway collection, one season is like amazing, right? It ends up being winter collection, and then the spring you're like, oh, it's kind of old ladyish. I don't know if I would wear that. But their vintage Chanel pieces, I probably have quite a collection of vintage Chanel. Every piece, whether it's a swimsuit or a 2-piece or a jacket or a dress, it's just made so well. Chanel is just made so well, and I love if I could just have every piece of Chanel in my store, all 3 locations, I would do laughing. I would love to collect every piece.
I'm sure you have multiple pieces. I remember when I went into your LA store, you've got some amazing Chanel bags, like the unusual shapes that you wouldn't necessarily see in every store. So, like, there's definitely some like really cool pieces to find, I think. But no, that's really interesting. So just a last question, Janet, for anyone who, because I know some people are kind of frightened about vintage, right? They don't know where to start. They don't know how to find. They don't know, not every vintage store is like yours with like amazing sales assistants and like stylists and whatever. So what would your advice be for somebody watching this show who's never bought vintage before, but like, what would your advice be?
So I would say the first thing I would say is, what's your budget, right? Because everybody has a budget. Some people can spend X amount, some people can spend more than their budget. Vintage now is so expensive. It became a big trend, right? Everybody, such a big trend. And I'm sure it's a big trend where you are as well.
Yeah.
I would say don't think about the brand as much. Think about how important it is to curate a one-of-a-kind piece. Like, I've seen some vintage pieces that we have, and other consigners or vintage stores, they have it, which is great, wonderful. But curate a piece that no one else has. Curate a piece that's from the runway, and really study that piece. Does it tell a story? Do you love it? Do you not love it? Sometimes I buy pieces that I don't necessarily know that I love, but I know my clients will, right? So if it's something for you, think about, am I going to wear this, or am I just collecting it? Because there are individuals that collect vintage pieces. So for me, the most important thing is it one of a kind? Because if it's one of a kind, you have a leg up in every way possible. You're the only one that has that piece, and you may be the only one that has that piece. We have pieces here that's been rented, let's say 10 times, and then I take it off. Then I just leave it in a beautiful bag and hold on to it before we reintroduce it, because it's a huge risk for me to rent out vintage pieces, especially one of a kind pieces. They may never come back. It has to really be rented to somebody that you trust, especially, and usually with a stylist. I can trust a stylist no matter what. I've worked with them for a long time. They're working with celebrities. They want to hold on to that relationship with you, so they're not going to burn bridges. But anybody that exactly. So you have to really be cognizant of that one vintage piece that you want to have. Do your homework. Don't just buy something because you love it. That's
really good advice. That's really good advice. And where do you find where do you find most of your clothes? Like, do you just is it like loads of different places? Is it like eBay? Is it Depop? Like, where do you find
Yes, it's everywhere. I have 3 people that are basically scouting the website on a daily basis.
Incredible.
It's everywhere. I travel to Europe. I have a trip coming up, and I'm going to Japan because they have the most amazing vintage pieces.
They do actually. They do. I've got some amazing vintage in Tokyo before, which was like mind blowing.
It's and they're so affordable there. eBay, Vestiaire. I mean, I find it all. But you know what? The key to finding vintage pieces is the time that you dedicate. You have to dedicate the time. Most people don't have the time to do that all day. So for us, we have a team that actually scouts, not all day, but there's a schedule and a formula that we have, right? And
amazing.
It's all about timing. If you're bidding on this piece, which I've kind of finessed on eBay, because I do eBay myself. There's a trick to it. And then Vestiaire, there's offers, right? But if you love this dress, I would personally not bid on an offer, only because they may have multiple offers. And by the time you bid an offer, it's gone. So if it's something that's pretty decently priced and not over extravagantly priced, we'll just buy it as is.
Yeah. Just get it off that. Get it wrapped and packed, Janet.
Yes. I mean, we buy at stores too. That actually takes a lot more time versus shopping online. But there's always ways to curate. There's so many people with clothes that they just don't want anymore.
I know, right? And it's a great way of like using things again. Like it's just things were made really well, and things aren't always made so well these days. So I love an old piece that's like impeccable. Nothing gives me more joy.
Correct.
It really does.
Yeah, I mean, it's so well made. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Janet. It's been lovely to dive into your world. And when we put this out, we're going to have
thank you for having me.
Of me filming in LA with my crew when we came, and we missed you by a couple of days.
Amazing.
But I'm hoping it will be like a really gorgeous episode, and I'd love to be able to do something with you in London in the future. I think it'd be amazing. So yeah, I'll come and see you next week when I'm in New York.
Let me know, girl. I'll fly and amazing.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
I'm
always here to help you for whatever you need.
I really appreciate it.
Emily.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. You too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you to everybody who helped with this episode in Los Angeles. I loved filming it and loved meeting everybody involved. See you next time.